Welcome to Mudit Verma's Furthermore podcast. You do not want to miss this. Hello, everybody. I am so happy to be with the comedian Prateek Srivastava. Prateek has a comedy album coming out on December 22nd on iTunes. And if you pre-order, Prateek Srivastava will send you a personalized video. Prateek, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Mudit. Good to be here. It's cold in my room, but I feel like the energy of our conversation will warm me up.
Where are you?
So I'm based in it's a town called Lombard, Illinois, which is about 45 minutes away from the city of Chicago.
Gotcha. That is cold. I'm in Maryland, and the temperature is pretty good inside, but I imagine it is unbearably cold outside. I'm a warm weather type.
Yeah, I think the East Coast, it can be kind of cold, especially, here's the thing, it's fine during the day, but as soon as the sun sets, freezing.
Yeah, totally. I hear you. So, Prateek, tell us your comedy origin story. How long you've been doing it, and yeah, tell us your story.
It became it was 10 years in April of this year, so I am giving a little bit of a mulligan based on the pandemic, because is this like an asterisk year? Is this a half year? I don't know. I think I'm gonna put it up there with like an asterisk year. But yeah, reached 10 years in April. I started in Chicago. I was going to school at DePaul University in the city of Chicago, and there was a theater in the kind of Lakeview neighborhood of Chicago. The theater was called the Lakeshore Theater. Funny enough, it was right by the lake. Whoa, what a concept. And the theater was doing a thing where they would do, hey, if you show your college ID, you pay no cover. It's free. So I remember being in college, being a broke college student looking for shit to do. So I'm just like, yo, let's go in, see what happens. And it was one of those things where I'd watch stand-up comedy on TV, and it was just like, oh, it's cool to watch stand-up comedy. But when you watch it live in person, that's where I really fell in love with the art form. And it really is an art. One of those things was the Lakeshore Theater did a really good job pairing up the headlining acts with local comedians. So like I got to see like Mark Maron paired up with this comedian who he's in LA now, but he was still in Chicago at the time. His name was James Fritz. And that was a good like symbiotic pairing. They're still a collective. They're called Comedians You Should Know. They started out at the Lakeshore Theater as well. And I got to see them kind of come up and really like, observe the local Chicago scene and realize like, hey, these comics are working hard. They're putting in the work ethic. And I was really inspired. Hard work inspires me, so really fell in love with that. Started doing stand-up, started going to open mics through the Lakeshore. The Lakeshore Theater had an open mic, so I went to that a few times. But going to that mic a few times, I met some more local comics and they said, hey, go to this open mic, go to this open mic. And from there, it was history. And unfortunately, the Lakeshore has closed, but in its place, the Laugh Factory opened up. So it's still kind of a sentimental thing to go there and kind of be reminded of the Lakeshore Theater.
Definitely. That's super awesome. And wow, I can totally learn so much from you. I'm only a year and a half in, and it's an asterisk sort of half year, if not more, because of this darn pandemic. Yeah, see, I'm still figuring out my voice, and sometimes I lean into like some of the awkward like word choice, and it's a fun.
It's I love it, man. Hey, if awkward voice, that's me. My voice is physically awkward. I get it. And you're a brown dude like me, and we have like these like kind of nasally white voices. I'm right there with you, man. The struggle is real, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then all these brown dudes are like, yo, oh, you sound white. And it's like, what is white? What does that mean? Race is just a construct, like, you don't need all that, man.
Definitely.
Do you.
Definitely. And I want to ask you about that. I looked you up on YouTube and I saw a video that had NBC in the title. And as I was watching it, the content was so on point. It was really like just the raw, like South Asian experience. So tell us about your preferred content type for your sets and maybe how that evolved over time.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't the same when I started. It was definitely something that, I think every good comedian set is going to evolve over time. I was definitely influenced. I remember it's one thing to say which comics influenced you early on, but for me, there were certain specials that influenced me early on. I think Eddie Murphy's Delirious influenced me early on. I remember the cookout bit, which is that's the other thing that Eddie Murphy does that a lot of people don't think about. Is Eddie Murphy, unlike most comics who start with a clean story and end on a dirty joke, Eddie Murphy starts very dirty in that special and ends on a story about his family, which I think is he's doing the inverse of that. So I remember listening to that, and that was our thing. I didn't even watch it initially. I only just heard it initially, and that's something that I picked up on too. Is how can you animate your jokes to where somebody can't even hear you or can't see you and you can just listen to you and still paint the picture in their head. So that's where Eddie Murphy's kind of storytelling really influenced me as well. In college, when I was kind of starting to go to Lakeshore Theater, I heard a lot about Bill Hicks, and I was definitely influenced by Bill Hicks as a social commentator. I know a lot of people are influenced by his drug habits. That's not really for me, but I was really inspired by how animated Bill, like go back and watch Bill Hicks's HBO One Night Stand. Very animated in that he's talking about he's doing political humor, but it doesn't feel like a TED Talk. It doesn't feel like Clapter. It feels like he's just pouring his heart out, being passionate about topics that he likes to talk about. And it's more of a social commentary than a political, rant. And so that really inspired me in my comedy. Because if you hear me do jokes or if you see my stand-up, yeah, I'll touch on things in the news, but it's done under the guise of being personal and being animated, so that it doesn't just work for if some woke hipster, is watching it, they'll laugh. But if somebody who's in Indiana, may not agree with me politically, hopefully they can laugh at some of the absurdity too.
Definitely. Yeah. And I really can see when I was watching that video, both the YouTube one and also your Instagram, like snippets, I aspire to that level of having the voice come to life. Like for me, I'm still at the words, just focusing on the words and then build up the character, the presence, the energy.
The energy.
Like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
That takes time, that energy. I still remember one of my first sets on stage. Like I'm very loud and high energy now, but when I started, I literally was holding up a piece of paper, the hand was shaking. And I remember one of my first open mics, they were like, yeah, we can't hear you, which now sounds hilarious because now I'm too loud. So, that stuff evolves with time. And I think another thing that people don't always think about is, what was what sort of stage experience, acting presence thing do you have pre-stand-up? For me, I had no stage experience before I started stand-up. I didn't do the high school plays. I took improv afterwards when I started doing stand-up. So, for people that are like, oh man, I'm not really comfortable on stage, I didn't really do much beforehand, I'm proof of that. I didn't do anything before. I had no artistic really. I played piano when I was in 4th grade, but I didn't really act or do anything until I started doing stand-up. And I think that is a perfect example of, hey, anyone can do this if they really put their mind to it. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that's enlightening because when I've had like a little bit of like theater, stage experience before stand up, not a whole lot, but just kind of I did the middle school play, not the high school play. And in college, some of the cultural talent shows and plays and things of that sort. I noticed that when like actors, like very acting centric folks do stand up, especially if it's like maybe their first mic, that they don't really gauge the feel of the room. They kind of just dive into their routine, and there's a mismatch sometimes.
Very true. It is, especially with stand up where, and that's something, around year 3 and 4 for me, I was definitely trying to be conscious of is, you want to give people a performance and you want to be able to not be, too wavered by if the audience isn't paying attention. But at the same time, you have to be able to read the room. Funny enough, so the album is called Nick and Sheila's Kid, but I put out an EP, just like an 8-minute EP, and that's called literally Read the Room, because I think that's a huge part of stand-up is, and that's the beauty of starting comedy in a city like Chicago is it's such a, diverse city. It's such a segregated city. And naturally the comedy audiences are just as segregated too. On any given night, pre-pandemic, you could do a show at a comic book shop. You could do a show at a bar. You could do a show at a nightclub. And those audiences are completely different. And what's good about that is you can see, hey, what about me works with this room? I'm not saying I redo every set completely differently, but there are certain tweaks and tricks that you have to do to modify the set for each crowd. And i.e. you have to read the room, Right. If I'm doing a show at a dive bar, I might be able to go off on an absurdist topic, or I can go a little dark, you know. But if my next show is like a cancer benefit at a black box theater, I probably can't do dark jokes over there. You know, I got to kind of modify what I'm doing. Maybe ease off the throttle a little bit. You know, if it's a benefit, maybe don't do as much political humor. At least that's a rule that I stick with.
Definitely. Can you speak to your writing process and how you develop bits sort of on the day to day? Like, do you have a certain routine you stick to, or a certain grind that you can speak to on like the day to day basis? Because that's something I'm struggling with. How do I reconcile my like short term, like daily goals with like bigger picture goals? You know?
Yeah, writing is, you know, I've always found that for me, and this just works for me, so, you know, take everything with a grain of salt. You know, I was never the sit down and write for 2 hours type of comic. I was always more of the, if I'm on the train, or if I'm commuting, or if like I'm getting off of work, or if I'm on a lunch break at work, like something might strike me and I'll, you know, jot down a note in my notebook or jot down a note in my phone type of person, you know, just a nugget or a kernel of an idea. And then from there, you know, I would go to an open mic or go to, you know, either like a, you know, some comics would do like little writer meeting things, you know, before the open mic get together, take that kernel of an idea, talk it out with them maybe a little bit, or even, you know, if you're not able to do that, just talk it out in your room, you know, like flesh out like beats of like, you know, just bullet points, not sentences, but just like bullet points of that idea. Yeah. Take that to the open mic. And then the other thing to do is, this is what I learned, like, I think my first year of comedy, I read this book by, he's a comedian, Franklin Ajay, Comic Insights. And in that, he said to record your sets. So a thing that I've started doing from early on is record the audio of every set and then go back and listen to the audio, which, you know, I know it's not fun to listen to your voice later, but you got to do it because to me, the rewriting process comes from listening to that audio of the set later. Because when you hear the laugh that is coming or the lack of laugh that is coming, then you can adjust and rewrite based on the laugh, you know? Definitely. And that's where I found my rewriting process helped, was maybe I'm not writing a ton early on. I might, if I have an idea, just write the bullet points, but then the true rewriting and the true refinement comes after performing it once and kind of seeing where I can fill in the gaps based on where the laughs are and aren't.
Definitely. I hear you. Definitely. Can you speak to like, has any other aspect of your life maybe come in conflict with stand-up? Like for me, sometimes it can be family. I'm in between jobs, so I'm like preemptively worried when, you know, when I sort of get a day job, like how to balance that. And then also going to the gym, just wellness and other commitments. Like, you know, how do you keep everything balanced?
It's not easy, man. I think that's what's kind of interesting about right now is, you know, you have these virtual opportunities to perform that makes it a little bit more convenient in the sense of, you know, you could work out in one room and then go do your virtual mic in the other room. So that's kind of the cool thing about right now. Whereas, you know, when I was starting, we only had, you know, the open mics in person. There was no virtual mics, which to its credit and to its not, you know, but you got to sit at that open mic for 3-4 hours. So it's more of a time commitment. Right. And this just, you know, again, it really depends on the comedy neighborhood or comedy scene that you're in. You know, the beauty of Chicago is you had multiple open mics on one night. So what I could do, you know, talk about balance is because I knew some comics were like, oh, I'm just going to do one mic every day, all 7 days a week. I'm like, I would rather personally for me double up one day or do 2 or 3 in one day, then take that next day off and do the self-care, workout, work, family, relationship, go on date or whatever. The next day, take that day off. So that way I'm like kind of keeping a healthy, like, hey, 1 day on, 1 day off, you know, 5 days a week, comedy, 2 days, health, self-care, you know, because this is just my opinion. I know a lot of comics are like, no, you gotta, when you're starting out, you gotta grind every day. You do, to a degree, you do gotta, you know, it is that Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours in two. But at the same time, I know so many comics who were going hard in the beginning, doing every day a week. And then you know what they're doing now? They're not doing stand-up. They burned out quickly. So I do think that you have to find that healthy balance. But at the same time, you know, don't be the comic who's going up twice a month and be like, yo, I've been doing it 10 years, twice a month, because you can see that that's also a problem too. So it's about finding the healthy balance. You know, I think realistically right now, you know, if you can get up 4 days a week, but really like 2 or 3 sets in that 4 days a week and really commit. Make those 4 days a week really be comedy days. That's fine. And then take the other 3 days, make them self-care days. Because I think right now, if we've learned anything in this past year, we need time for ourselves too. You gotta live a life that you can then use for your comedy too.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate the nuance of, as you said, 2 to 3 to 4 sets in one night. And then the next night you're all, you might be taking a day off from the stage, but you might be doing other things. And what comes to my mind is like there's a parallel to perhaps weightlifting and other types of exercise, like running, like sprinting, doing a sprint workout where you go hard and then you kind of rest and then go hard again, as opposed to running several miles at the same pace. Like, I think, I sort of perceive the more efficient and balanced growth with your approach. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think kind of like using that workout analogy a little bit. You have cardio days versus like weightlifting days. So there are comedic cardio days where you could just be writing one day, or I mentioned this earlier that I started doing improv like in the middle of my stand-up career, and I thought that's what it became to be, where I would have my open mic or go to open mics or do shows a few days a week, and then the one day was improv class, or like just branching out and doing something else within the artistic realm, but maybe necessarily isn't stand-up. Right. I encourage anyone who's doing stand-up, if they're feeling burned out at some point, take an improv class. You may not fall in love with improv, but you may utilize those improv tools for your stand-up. Take a pilot writing class. Those, even if you necessarily don't want to be a TV writer, you could utilize those skills of learning how to write a joke through a TV lens and apply that to writing joke for stand-up. All those skills and tools that you learn, you never know when they might be able to be applicable to stand-up. It all might cross-pollinate. And I think some comics who kind of poo-poo to that, especially in Chicago, where there's this weird improv and stand-up rivalry, which I never really understood. I think all that is nonsense. You never know what skills from one thing you could use in another, and some of the great stand-ups to come out of Chicago were improvisers. If you watch Saturday Night Live, there's a guy, Chris Redd, on there. He started out as an improviser and he did stand-up too. He was able to utilize both skills. So be open to branching out and mixing it up. I think that's important.
Definitely. Absolutely. So bringing it to the present and here now, a couple things. You got the album coming out on December 22nd, as I mentioned earlier. And there's a promo where if you pre-order it, which you can pre-order on iTunes, Prateek will send you a video. So if you could talk about that, as well as maybe what, how you're keeping busy these days, knowing that we're kind of in the second lockdown with this pandemic.
Right. Yeah. Nick and Sheila's Kid is the album, comes out December 22nd. And here's the thing with putting that album together is I realized, kind of going back to this process of writing a little bit, I realized that, I had all these stories about my family, and it was one of those things where, like Indian, sons and daughters, we have a relationship with our parents. Sometimes we get along, sometimes we don't. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I get to make fun of my parents. Anyone else makes fun of them? No, I get to do it. So this was like kind of a love letter to them. I named the album after them. And when we were putting it together and thinking about the release date, we were like, hey, December, it's my birthday. It's kind of a good juju, good energy month. And it's the holidays, which is when people spend a lot of time with their family. Maybe they get along with their family, maybe they don't, but they're thinking about their family. So I thought this would be a great time to share my family experiences with other people's family experiences, and we can all commiserate together. And we did this cool video with my parents, actually. And kind of that's kind of the thing right now with the pandemic, is we're going into this lockdown. So there was this need for me to be like, what can I do to kind of give people things to watch? The album's coming out, but what else? So that's where this video idea came from, and we're kind of locked down with family too, which, and I'm locked down with my family right now, and I'm trying to be sober too, which ain't the easiest thing, man. It's not easy. So it was kind of cathartic for me too, to do that video, because it was like, yes, I'm getting along with my parents, but also, look, we're quarantined together going on since March. There's going to be slight tension. So it was actually a cathartic thing for me to make that video with them.
Awesome. That is fantastic. I look forward to it. And Super inspiring stuff. Yes. Any words of wisdom, getting through these tough times for comedians, for consumers of comedy, for everybody?
Yeah, I think that's the thing right now is, if you're a performer right now, you're kind of like, we had that window of time in the summer where things kind of opened up. So even those who weren't necessarily doing the Zoom or virtual shows, they were like, oh, we could do like some live shows, we could do some outdoor shows. And I think that's great. If you feel safe to do the comedy right now outside, do it. But at the same time, be open to, I say personally, for all these comics who maybe haven't tried virtual comedy, you can't hurt to do one and see how you like it. I fell into the virtual performances because I had a private event that was booked literally March 23rd. And they were like, hey, we want to do it, but we want to do it on Zoom and we're still going to pay you. And I was like, hey, I like money. So let's try it and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Literally, I had no intention of doing anything on Zoom. And I'm like, yo, let's try it and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? I've certainly had shows that have gone awkward before. Why not do one on a laptop? You know what I mean? Yeah. I've done shows at dive bars where people have tried to throw batteries at me. You think I can't do a Zoom show where people are kind of silent? So
right.
And that's the thing with we've all done shows, and I'm sure you've done them too, where it's like they're even in person, you can have a weird experience. Yeah. So I was like, it can't be much worse over Zoom. That's literally how it started. So yeah, my advice to young comics right now who, they might be in a position like you were, they aren't able to do any in-person mics right now is stick with Zoom right now. But also be aware that Zoom isn't end all be all. I liken Zoom. I like in Zoom too. Zoom is soy bacon. It's the healthiest option right now, but it's not as good as the real thing. But it's in the fridge right now. So enjoy Zoom comedy right now, especially being, look, you're on the East Coast. It's cold out there. I think Zoom will be like a seasonal thing where great for, you want to cuddle up by a fire and watch some comedy for an hour. Great. And then go back to, watching Netflix later, so it's a great alternative right now. And I think everybody should try to be positive too. I think at some point we're going to get back to, it might be a different type of comedy setting, but I think we'll get back to a point where, you can perform, you can do half capacity shows, which let's be honest here, how many stand-ups aren't used to half capacity shows? Am I right? Yeah. I think everybody just needs to stay positive, power through, say hi to your family, if you haven't been able to do that. I know it's cautious right now. Everybody's kind of hesitant to be with their family or whatever, but reconnect with someone right now. That's the other thing I'm doing right now for self-care is reconnect with somebody you haven't thought about. Nothing wrong with doing a little Zoom face-to-face or a Skype call once in a while. Right. But get that human contact in, get that fun time in. Take a day for yourself. We'll have plenty of time to get back to comedy. Enjoy kind of this little vacation, if you will, right now. And things will get back before we know.
Absolutely. This is super helpful and insightful stuff. I would also say as a beginner, Zoom has been a great networking opportunity with comedians that otherwise would not really meet outside.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't have connected if it weren't for Zoom. Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. Another point to reiterate is for new comics right now, I would definitely try Zoom comedy just for the purpose of one, the Zoom mics are fairly more supportive than regular open mics. So enjoy that new car smell of support. Enjoy that. That's part one. Part two, you're getting to connect with comedians, not just in your home state. You can connect with comedians in LA, New York. You can connect with international comedians. If you really want, you can do open mics in London at 7 a.m. And I think that's a great opportunity right now. Take advantage of that. Because when things open up, then you have a connection for if you ever want to travel over. So
definitely. Absolutely. And this is awesome stuff. Definitely an exciting time for Zoom and networking. So yes, thank you so much, Prateek. I'll have all of Prateek's information, his social media, his album information in the YouTube caption. And yes, thank you so much for being on, Prateek.
Thank you, Mudit. Happy to be here. We appreciate this. This is our longest conversation, so I'm glad we got to do this. Album, album comes out December 22nd, and it's a good old time. We talk about family. It's also not even centric to just Indian people. I think if you're someone who ever felt like a fish out of water, you will like this album. So check it out. at Prateek Comedy, and then prateekcomedy.com is my website. That's you spelled it out there, so that's perfect. Prateek. None of that IK stuff. I'm EK, baby.
Yes, that is where you'll find Prateek's stuff. And yes, thank you again.
Thank you, buddy.